Hi, we're back with another segment with Christy Dye, and we're going to talk a little bit about some discrete parts of the instruction. We talked about how you planned, how you've integrated some of the shifts in Common Core, and sort of what instruction looks like on the ground in your classroom. Now we're going to get a little deeper into some of the discrete parts of it. I would like to hear a little bit about your, well, let's start with a little bit more about, I want to talk about language standards,
Okay.
Parts of speech and that sort of thing. I want to talk about foundational reading, and I want to talk about your vocabulary instruction. So let's start with the foundational piece. I know we talked about that a lot in the last video, but talk to me about what these small groups look like and how you decide who goes where and what you do in those
Okay.
groups.
My small groups are very data driven, but like you said, I will pull in some standards or some struggles that I see walking around and observing that all teachers see. And then I form their groups in that manner. So if these students need to work on phonics skills that they haven't mastered, I may put them on an active board game playing tic-tac-toe phonics where they're practicing their decoding skills. Or I may play a game that I play called Bust, where I make a bunch of nonsense words, put them in a bag, they draw the word out, they sound it out. If they draw the word bust, they have to put all their cards back. But I try to find the most creative, fun ways to present these skills to them so that they're having a good day and they're learning at the same time.
How about that? So you have 20 kids. How many would you put in a small group?
I typically put 4 to 5. Occasionally it works out that I have to put 6 in a group and I only have 3 in one group. And it's because there's only 3 children struggling with that standard, and then they
But that's
form
great
that
because the
small
kids'
group.
needs always is always driving your decision, and not
Sure.
how many people fit the table,
No,
which is good.
It doesn't work out sometimes because you have 5 texts and you're like, well, you have to share. But they do
It's
well
good
with
though.
that too.
So at what time of your day is that when you do the small group? Would you have your group reading first and then break out, or do you have?
Basically, our schedules are formed by our school because we have our teaching assistants that come in and assist us with our reading groups and our math groups.
And I suppose you like to have your TA in the room when you're doing small groups.
I do. She has her own group, and she pulls students. Occasionally, I will have her pull students that need enrichment, and they may go play a 4th or 5th grade level game that's working on phonics and decoding, but it's gearing towards upper grades. We have small groups at the end of the day from 12:30 to 1:30, and I typically keep them for 20 minutes apiece. And I may keep them for 30 minutes apiece and get through only 2 rotations. I just play it the way that I need to play it, and I work around the needs of the students.
Again, that flexibility, that's fantastic. And so you have felt like, even though your kids come in with a lot of different levels, some that are guessing words, others that need to go to a 4th or 5th grade classroom in order to be challenged, you're able to deliver that foundational instruction without relying specifically on the basal, but using the authentic text that's under consideration, and then using all of your games and activities that you have.
Absolutely. And you can buy everything in the world, but you also can very quickly with index cards make something that could benefit 20 kids.
Right. Do we have, are any of these things small group activities, or are these mostly our the comprehension
These are mostly all whole group or novel study activities.
Because you have some great comprehension scaffolding things that we're going to look at there in a moment.
I do have the fluency strips, and then I have several games that I have made.
I know you're saying we're going to, everything that we talk about, it will be provided to you in the PDF document. Any worksheets, or not the W word, but graphic organizers and things like that, or any of the games, we'll provide as much of that to you as we can. I want to talk about how you integrate the language standards and how you do vocabulary without letting the segment run too long. Talk to me about how you've integrated the language standards.
Okay, that was what was most exciting to me about Common Core, that I was able to read a sentence to the students, or someone was reading a sentence, and I would say, okay, stop, please find the verb in that sentence, and we would talk about it as a group. I might say find the adjective, find the possessive noun, and that's why we're sitting in our carpet area reading and discussing the novel. Now, I also later give them a specific chapter and I assign them a part of speech. And their goal is for their group to find as many verbs or as many nouns, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, whatever their part of speech is that their group is given. And they write them all down, and then they come up, put them on poster paper, and then we talk about them. And what's very interesting is to see the different parts of speech that can be used as another part of speech rather than the way
English
it is
is
in text.
particularly
Yes.
bad about that.
This is just one example of just where I had put the posters up. And this group was in charge of pronouns, so they had to list as many
And they're
pronouns as
finding,
they could.
and they're finding most of them out of the book, which is
It
great.
was out of the
Always tied to
chapter.
text.
And then the verbs.
And look, those are all Winn-Dixie verbs. It's
Yes.
sit, bark,
Bark.
yeah.
And then adjectives. And see, this is the perfect example. Garden and baby in the text. Garden was an adjective in the text. Baby
So
was
a
an
garden
adjective.
tool, or
Yes.
as a baby game.
Yes. And then here are the nouns. So they've just come up and written those down. But I also get a little mini assessment. I'll have them write the sentence on a sentence strip, each individual child, and they have to label the parts of speech for me.
Parts of speech is tough. I know we
It is
reteach
tough.
those every year. I used to, in middle school, I was still reteaching them. They don't tend to stick. But research shows us that if you use the authentic text, and it also gives you an opportunity to talk about the why and the how. Why are we switching to a pronoun here after we've said
Sure.
the name 3 times? Listen how it sounds funny if we keep saying Mary went because Mary was hungry, because Mary wanted to.
Yes.
Listen how it's, and you can talk about author's purpose, and then you can get into style.
Right.
So it's great. You can make that so much more real. Okay, and finally, I'd like to talk about how you have taught vocabulary. I know we talked about the beautiful part about you pulling these informational texts is that the kids are getting a lot of more complex academic vocabulary along with the vocabulary that complements the vocabulary that's in the text. So
Sure.
how do you approach that?
Well, there's so much vocabulary in these novels, and I found that if you just go through and even read just one chapter, you can come up with so many words. This was because the Winn-Dixie flip book, and the words were pride, supper, furious, installment, and tremble. And it's amazing the vocabulary that we take for granted that they don't know what pride means.
Well, down south, we don't know the difference between dinner and supper either. That's an ongoing debate.
Right. But I have them, basically I do flip books, I do vocabulary graphic organizers where they have to associate the word to
Brayer
other
model,
words.
right? Yeah.
Yes. And then I also play this awesome game called the Vocabulary Show.
And we have that film. It's adorable. We're gonna
and
make
they love that.
available.
They
to
really
everyone.
get excited about the vocabulary with that show.
Right, and those are all authentic text examples, which is good to
Yes.
remember.
I did create too this parts of speech flip book as a form of an assessment where they had to sort the different parts of speech. So just taking, standards that you teach and then making something else out of it. And this doesn't even have any dogs or anything for because of Winn-Dixie, but it was still a way after we worked on that standard in the text, it was a way for me to see if they actually understood.
Well, one thing that stands out is that there's, between all the activities that you do, there's a lot of cohesion and connection and overlap. Like things are not isolated. So, if you have those connections in that constellation, then all that learning is going to stick. So.
And I attribute that to Common Core. It has all
It
made
is a different
sense.
sort of an approach, isn't it? We're taking away that idea of isolation, and I think that's why the standards are as short and elegant as they are, because it gives you so much more latitude
Sure.
to do this in the way that you want to do it. All right, in the next video, we want to talk about really focus on the reading piece. You went ahead and did grapple with one of the more complex novels. I know that, for example, I think Wizard of Oz was one of our first grade novels that some folks read, and that one was actually in the Common Core appendix. And people looked at it and said, oh my goodness, first grade Wizard of Oz. Now, we got some really good feedback after the fact, after folks went ahead and dove in. But a lot of teachers thought, that's really on the high end. And you did that. You went ahead and dove in with one of the higher end, quite long books.
Yes.
So I'm really interested to hear how you scaffolded the comprehension and the engagement